Welcome, listeners, to the Latin American Perspectives podcast. My name is Armando. I am the outreach coordinator of the Latin American Perspectives Journal, and I will be the commentator speaking with the two issue editors of the forthcoming issue set for November 2012, issue 186, titled Tourism, Gender, and Ethnicity. I would like to begin by introducing our first guest with us. Her name is Tamar Diana Wilson. Welcome, Tamar.
Thank you, Armando.
Tamar is an associate editor of Latin American Perspectives and a research affiliate of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. She is the author of the forthcoming book titled Economic Life of Mexican Beach Vendors, Acapulco, Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo San Lucas. Thank you for your time, Tamar.
Thank you.
Our other guest is Annelou Ypeij. She is an assistant professor at the Center for Latin American Research and Documentation in Amsterdam, and with Michael Bod, she is an editor of the book titled Cultural Tourism in Latin America. Welcome, Annelou.
Thank you, Armando.
Annelou is also an author of one of the articles in this issue, titled The Intersection of Gender and Ethnic Identities in Cusco, Machu Picchu Tourism Industry, Sácame Fotos, Tour Guides, Women Weaver. Annelou, we will come back to you to ask about some of your work on that.
Okay.
Tamar, I'd like to begin by asking you some questions. This issue of Latin American Perspectives deals with tourism. Now, tourism is a big industry in Latin America. It has become a popular tourist destination, and some countries in the region rely heavily on tourism revenues for its national income. In this issue of LAP, social constructs are examined, such as gender and ethnicity. Tamar, my question is, how does tourism engage with these social processes, gender and ethnicity?
Well, taking ethnicity first, the indigenous peoples may be mined for their cultural patrimony in order to give pleasure to tourists. On the other hand, hosts may utilize their ethnicity in order to gain an income from tourism. In this issue, there are two articles concerned, for example, with spiritual tourism. One shows how cultural aspects of indigenous peoples are appropriated in order to create a New Age religion that attracts tourism and tourism-related income. Another shows how indigenous peoples refuse the expropriation of their cultural patrimony and combat widespread stereotypes. In that article, the author shows how the Maya reject the idea that December 2012 marks the end of the world. Rather, they react by saying that it is only the close of the Maya calendar and perhaps a new world order. A third article on Mexico and Peru shows how the tourist industry and the governments may exoticize indigenous peoples in order to glean profits. Annelou's article also touches on this. A fourth article, based on a case study in the state of Jalisco, Mexico, shows that indigenous peasants, as well as other peasants, may have their lands expropriated in order to build tourist facilities. As concerns the issue of gender, my co-authors and I show that among the informal or semi-informal women beach vendors in Cabo San Lucas are often marginalized in relation to both men and to the dynamics of the economy. Annelou also has comments on issues of gender in tourist centers in Peru.
I see. Now, what are some of the areas in Latin America that this issue covers, and how do these places differ in the processes that are involved in tourism?
Most of the articles in the issue are concerned with tourism and its interaction with host gender and ethnicity in various parts of Mexico and or Peru. There are many similarities in both countries as concerns how indigenous peoples present themselves to gain an income from tourism, and on the other hand, how they are exploited by the state and by the tourism industry in order to attract tourists.
I see. Thank you, Tamar. Now, this is just some of the general content that is in this upcoming issue of Latin American Perspectives. To provide us with more depth about a specific article, I'd like to now turn to our other issue editor and also author of one of the articles in this issue. Annelou, tell us about your article in this issue.
I make a comparison between three groups of workers who all three work at the lowest echelons of the labor market in the Machu Picchu region of Peru. The Sácame Fotos, these are women who pose for tourist cameras in return for a tip. The second group are tour guides who take tourists on excursions, mostly the Inca Trail, And the third group consists of women weavers who invite tourists in their shops to show their weavings and ancient weaving techniques. And of course, they want to sell those weavings to the tourists. All three groups of workers use their identities as females or males, indigenous or mestizos, as urban or rural to earn money. But there's more to it than only acknowledging that they use their identities in a strategic way, because we find a lot of that already in the scholarly literature. What I argue in the article is that the context with tourists provoke many changes in the daily lives of the men and women involved. For example, the way these workers perceive themselves, the way they value themselves, and the way these workers are being perceived by their family, their friends, in other words, their significant others. These are all changes, and these changes are so intense that you could say that tourism is resulting in profound cultural and social transformations.
I see. And how does gender play a role in tourism in the Cusco region?
Well, gender is absolutely relevant. The identity construction of these workers takes place at the crossroad of gender and ethnicity. As I said, you can see profound cultural and social transformations. And one is that gender and ethnicity are becoming interwoven in new ways. Before tourism changed the lives of these women and men, indigenous women had a subordinate position, not only towards her husband, but in society in general. In the early 90s, Marisol de la Cadena, a Peruvian anthropologist, wrote a beautiful article stating women are more Indian than men, and therefore women are more subordinate than men. And what she did was making a difference between men and women of the same household who had different ethnic identities. And this was really an eye-opener in the study of gender and ethnicity in the Andes. In the context of tourism, indigenous women are indeed more Indian, but to the contrary to the statement of Marisol de la Cadena, they are no longer automatically subordinate. Their contact with tourists improves their feelings of self-esteem. These women are proud on who they are, on who their ancestors were, on their language, Quechua mostly, and on their cultural roots. And very important, they earn money. Some indigenous women even earn substantial income in tourism, and this changes the sexual division of labor within their households. They really have become important income generators, and what you can see is that some women even are earning so much that you could almost call them rich. Before tourism, social mobility of indigenous people was only possible through a profound change of lifestyle. Indigenous people had to move to urban areas if they wanted to improve their lifestyle. And that meant that they started working in urban jobs, mostly in the informal economy, and that they had to change their appearance into a more urban one. In other words, they had to become more mestizo and leave their rural indigenous identity behind. But now, with tourism, these indigenous women earn money. Not only money, they earn also the admiration of tourists, while stressing their ethnic identities and living in their own communities. I am not saying that we can already see a new middle class of rich indigenous women rising, but there are small indications for it that this may happen in the future, and I consider that really as a huge social and cultural transformation.
Yes, it's amazing how identities are constructed through tourism's engagement with gender and ethnicity. Well, there you have it, from the words of the author. Thank you, Tamar, and thank you, Annelou, for your time and participation.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Armando, for conducting this podcast.
Not a problem. So many perspectives on tourism to think about, and Latin American Perspectives gives it to you through so many lenses. Again, this issue of LAP is set for November 2012, titled Tourism, Gender and Ethnicity, issue 187, volume 39, number 6. You can find it on the Sage website at lap.sagepub.com or at our journal's website at www.latinamericanperspectives.com. We also have a presence on Facebook at www.facebook.com/lapjournal. We appreciate you listening. Until next time.